Happy Wednesday morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Building Bridges with Steve and Melisa here on Crossover Radio. Radio with a purpose. It is
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
the 30th, I believe.
Or something like that. Who knew?
It's Wednesday at the end of September.
Who?
And, that's just one more month closer to being done with 2020. And I think everybody can get on board with that. I was just going to sit here and just look at you and admire your beauty and let you talk for the whole hour. But
Look at you go.
Eventually, she's going to think something's up.
Oh, right, I would.
And
I would have thought you had, presidential debate hangover or something.
Oh.
That was, a train wreck.
That was...
That was 90 minutes of our life we'll never get back.
For those of you who watched, I apologize. For those of you who didn't, you're smarter than the rest of us.
Indeed, that is true, friend. That is so true.
Yeah, we're talking about all this month about road rules and relationships, and last night was just a big old stop sign. Just stop. Just stop.
Sometimes
stop.
We just need to say no.
Yes.
Just say no. And I think that there's a place where we should have just said no. Just stop. Just say no. Just call it quits. Just don't give yourself any more help than you. One of my favorite scriptures, I should research and figure out where it's at, but it's in Proverbs. And it says, even a fool is thought to be wise if he keeps his mouth shut.
Yes, the wisest people were the people who were not saying anything last night. But that's enough of that. I joked last night. Everyone was the country was unified last night in the debate stunk.
It was not exactly anybody's bright and shining moment.
No.
Can we just say that?
Hopefully, the folks out there in crossover radio land are not, in relationships that are name calling and screaming over one another and not listening and all that stuff.
We can, what we could do? That was a really good point you were making. And one of the things we could do is we should have, if we'd have been thinking, we could have used the debate as the what not to do if you're married. Because there's probably a lot of marriages out there like that.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. That's why they come and see us, is because they're crazy and their communication is broken down and nobody is listened to and nobody is heard.
Right. And so wives out there in crossover radio land, in Facebook land, all of the places where you are wives. Respect is the number one need of your husband. Actually, respect is the number one need of men in general, but particularly, and for your benefit, your husband and your sons. And one of the most disrespectful things that we do as girls, because it doesn't seem disrespectful to us, but it is disrespectful to them, is that we talk over our husbands all the time. We finish their sentences, we talk when they're talking, and it all communicates, and last night was a perfect example of this. It communicated that no one is listening. No one is listening. And you want to respect your husband. You want to show him some honor that he is due because the Lord has invited you to do that. Ladies, learn from the debate last night. Don't talk over your husband. Give them time to finish their sentence. Let them finish their thoughts. Let them complete everything they're saying. You don't need to talk over them. There'll be plenty of room for you to talk when they're done. Let's just learn from the debate.
And here's the idea is if you jump in the middle of his sentence, the chances of him responding in kind go up 100%. And all of a sudden, he's jumping in the middle of your sentence. And you know what happens? You don't get heard.
Right. Nobody gets heard.
And communication is the problem that most couples come to us with. And you know what? If you're always interrupting each other and always raising your voice over each other. You know, the loudest person doesn't win the argument. The person generally with the best point wins the argument, but the idea is not to have a winner and a loser in a relationship. The goal is to have communication, to speak and be heard on both sides, both the husband and the wife. So if you're trying to win the argument by being louder, all you're doing is destroying the chance that effective communication is going to happen.
That is such a powerful truth. Because generally, one person will stop. I mean, you know, if you talk over your husband often enough, he will quit talking. He will quit talking to you. He might not stop talking about you, but trust me, he will quit talking to you. And no wife wants their husband to quit talking to them.
Or the only thing that will happen is talking doesn't work. The only thing that works is screaming. And then you go immediately to fighting and skip over talking and discussing rationally. And then your marriage is in real trouble, because if the only communication is arguing and yelling, you are going to struggle mightily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what was there any other lessons that we could learn from the debate last night, babe? Just as long as we're kind of on that subject.
Name calling doesn't win points. Name calling makes you look juvenile.
Wow,
man. And
it's true.
And here's the thing: is there was name calling to go around. This was a bipartisan dumpster fire of the highest order last night. You could find folks from the political left and the political right who all thought it was, you know, it wasn't just a skunk in the middle of the road. It was a whole family of skunks that got hit by the semi and just left overnight to ripen. It was, and name calling is petty. You know, my wife has a name. Her name is Melisa. It's not woman or any other demeaning names that you can use, you know. And name calling elevates nothing.
Right.
Elevates nothing. It only inflames the situation. It only increases the likelihood that regrettable things will be said. And in an ideal, healthy relationship, when something unkind is said, it can be forgiven. Most of us are not that healthy. Most of us will file away the horrible thing that their husband or wife said to be drug out at a later date in a different fight, because we're broken and we have some issues and we need a little more Jesus to be a little better at forgiving. So what's said can't be unsaid, which is why name calling should never be employed, because it can't be unsaid and it is often brought back around when you least expect it. So yeah, another point from last night's uber disgrace is name calling doesn't help anything ever. Name calling always makes you look like a elementary schooler.
And if you jump into the middle of a conversation, you never get and you don't give the other person a chance to finish their thoughts, you never actually know what they're planning to say. We think we do. We assume we do. We might have felt like we've heard it before, but what would happen if we actually just allowed people to finish their thoughts? How about if we treated people with kindness and honor, right? I don't have to, this is not in marriage, because I do need to honor and love I need to love my husband. I do love my husband. But in relationships, in people encounters every single day, first of all, let's start with Christ followers, right? They carry and house the presence of the Lord. They deserve honor because they are the dwelling place of God, right? But even if they're not a Christ follower, they're still people who deserve honor. And our world, specifically the United States, has lost its ability to honor people. And we see it in marriages all the time. So today we're talking about road rules for change. We're finishing that up.
Yep. Asleep
at the wheel.
Yeah, a lot of times you're in the middle of a marriage, there's a problem, it keeps popping up, you keep running into the same issues, and sometimes you are absolutely oblivious to the fact that this is going on.
Yeah.
You are asleep at the wheel. My family lives in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
It is 12 hours straight north on I-35. Oddly enough, for every time we've driven up there, it seems that the person who winds up on the overnight shift is me, and the last thing I can do is be asleep at the wheel. Otherwise, we're going to wind up in a ditch in Iowa somewhere, and it could be a really long time before anybody finds us. And so you want to have an awareness about what's going on in your relationship so that you're not asleep at the wheel. Some of the best things you can do is in a time of peace, in a time where there's no conflict, ask how you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, is there anything I need to be aware of? Is there something that I can do better, that maybe there's an issue that I don't know about that we can fix now, not in the heat of battle, but in a time of relative calm.
And I think that's it is. In fact, I have a client that I'm working with right now, and that's one of the topics that we talked about recently in one of our sessions was the idea of asking her husband, how is she doing? Has he seen any improvement in her? And it was really difficult for her because, it does take some courage to ask that question,
mm-hmm.
because you open yourself up to the couple of possibilities. First one is that they will say no. And you feel like you've been working hard, that you're killing it, that you're doing a great job, all of those things. Excuse me. And your spouse may say, I'm sorry, I haven't seen any improvement, right? And that's painful to hear, right?
And here's what I would say about that, is maybe they're asleep at the wheel.
True.
Maybe you are making changes and they're not looking.
Right.
And so you could be making good strides and they don't notice, and that doesn't mean you're not making good strides.
Right. And so there's that whole rejection piece that goes with that. If you're not careful, you'll feel rejected by them, because especially if you've been trying really hard and they don't even notice that you've been trying really hard. The other thing is, if they say no and you ask the follow-up question that you should ask in, what would you like to see me change, right? That's a tough question to ask, but it's a powerful question to ask.
But what would change look like to you?
Right. And I think, wise people learn to say, how am I doing? Like, do you feel like is there anything in our relationship that you would like to see change? Maybe if you don't direct it to say, is there anything in our relationship you'd like to see me change? Maybe you just say, what is some things in our relationship that you would like to see better? And they're always going to open yourself up for your spouse to give you some points of areas in your life where they maybe aren't satisfied with how things are going or whatever. But change never happens if you don't know you need to change. If you're asleep at the wheel and you think everything's glorious, and the other person is being starved to death for maybe you speaking their love language or whatever, those conversations are super, super important to have.
Is it fair for me to say, hey, one of the changes I would like to see in our relationship is more pasta?
Sure.
I'm pro pasta. I think pasta is a good thing. I think marriages are better when pasta is present.
Our daughter would 100% agree with you. She loves herself some pasta.
And during her current first pregnancy, she's probably going all in on the pasta.
Yeah, maybe. But I think I think it is important. It is a critical question to do a periodic assessment. One of the things that Stephen and I do, and we promote a lot, is the idea of doing a vision, having a vision for your marriage. Where are we going in our marriage? What do we want to see? What is our marriage going to look like? What are the non-negotiables in our marriage? Those kinds of things. And we do an assessment at the end of the year and say, how did we do a year in review, kind of look at what happened.
Yep, and here's the thing that does is, it keeps you from just barreling blindly ahead. It gives you a direction. It gives you a purpose. It reminds you, hey, I need to turn here. We need to do more of this or less of that. And I think that couples can get into such a rut in their marriage that they can just put it on cruise control, and they're they need to hit that ridge on the side of the road to wake them up out of their little mini naps there. And having a vision, having a plan, having goals in the relationship directs you towards something. It's not just getting on the highway and driving straight where you can not pay attention to where you're going, because if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss a turn that you need to make.
Right.
And
we're going to make a turn right now into our sponsors. So we'll be right back with Building Bridges with Steve and Melisa here on Crossover Radio.
Radio with a purpose.
Don't go away.
I just love it out here. It's so peaceful, and you get chills when you come out, and you feel the presence of God, man. And, it's something, and the feelings. That's something a lot of us have never had.
Opiates, meth, alcohol. Are you addicted? Rob's Ranch is a nonprofit, Christ-based treatment center for men located in central Oklahoma. Rob's Ranch uses proven treatment methods and a program of spiritual growth to give men the opportunity to restore their lives and their relationships. Every member on staff has been there and are now in recovery themselves. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction to drugs or alcohol, please call 405-253-3838 or find Rob's Ranch on Facebook or online at robsranch.org.
They're just so accepting, so caring. It'll change your life if you're not careful.
At Passion Church in Bethany, their mission is to encounter God and engage culture. You can join them Sunday mornings at 10 or 11:30. There's Passion Kids for the children during the services. Wednesday nights at 6:30, teens and college students get plugged in with Ignite Youth Ministries. Passion Church is located at 3301 North Council Road in Bethany. Learn more or watch online at passionchurch.tv, or you can call 405-210-7754. Passion Church. Encounter God, engage culture.
In Melisa, we are talking today about the road rules of relationship. And today we're talking about being asleep at the wheel.
We are talking about being asleep at the wheel.
Not something we recommend.
No, not a good thing. It's not a safe way to drive. It's not a safe way to do marriage. Getting into the mundane of your marriage is a dangerous place to go. We had a son who was in Lawrence, Kansas for a while. He was there for a whole year. We went several times to visit him. And you guys, if you have driven I-35 through Kansas, my joke was always I wanted to throw out a pop can so the people behind me would have something to look at, because it is miles and miles and miles and miles of nothing. And sometimes if we don't invest in our marriage, we end up with years and years and years of the mundane, years and years and years of the going through the motions, the routine of it all, and we don't ever become who God created us to be. We don't have the marriage that we've dreamed of. We would never look at anybody and say, hey, we're living the dream, because we just live day to day, mundane after mundane after mundane day. And so our goal in this show, in this episode of our show, is to help you to begin to identify places where we need to change. Identify that, in any relationship, there are always things to improve. There's always things to change. In fact, for a long time, Stephen and I had this recurring fight. And I had a wrong perception. We did not have the same perception of what he was saying. And I got the impression that he was primarily unhappy in our relationship in the overwhelming majority of time in our relationship. That was my take on what he was saying. And we kind of went through this little battle for a little while. And finally I said, and he kept saying, that's not what I'm saying. And I said, okay, well then what percentage of our marriage do you feel like is bad? And I forget, how much did you say? Like
2%.
2%. And we just saw it from two different places. He wanted to improve the 2%, and I had extrapolated it out to say it must be the 98% that's wrong. And it took us a little while to get on the same page, but when we realized that, what we realized is that we were both talking about two different things and assuming that we were both saying the same thing, when that in fact wasn't the case. And I think all too often in relationships and marriages, we have this concept that the other person is inside our brain, perfectly understands what we're saying, but our communication with each other is faulty. They're not hearing what we think we're saying. And so I think it's important that we don't stay in this repetitive cycle of conflict, just because we don't ask some simple questions.
Yep, and the thing about that is, we talked a little bit earlier about asking, what do you want to see different? What do you think we need to change? And the fact is that, the person you ask may not have an answer.
Right.
They may not have any specifics for you. Okay, fine. But that doesn't mean you can't self-initiate change. Okay, I'm going to get up a half an hour earlier so I can make sure that the coffee is made. I'm going to do this little thing differently so that the person I'm married to has fresh coffee every morning. Not a big deal, a little change that you do for the betterment of the relationship. There are dozens of little changes you can make. There are some big changes you can make. Say you think that you become spiritually complacent and you're going to start going to church. Even if your spouse doesn't want to go to church, put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants, get up on Sunday morning and go to church and say, hey, I'm going to church. I'd love if you come with. If you don't, no harm, no foul. There's a big change that you can self-initiate,
right,
to get your relationship or your family moving in a different direction.
Right, and that self-reflective time, that self-awareness that we have of ourselves, here's another place where we can learn to initiate change in ourselves, and that is ask the Holy Spirit. Like, Holy Spirit, what do I need to change to bring our relationship to a better place, right? Here's the thing. We know this to be true. We talk about it all the time. We don't have the capacity to change anyone else but ourselves anyway. Now, if we change, it often changes how the other person interacts with us. And in that way, we sort of feel like we've affected change in them. But the truth is, the only person that we have the capacity to change is ourselves. And learning to take your own blinders off, this is just, this is just who I am. This is just what I do. Like it or love it. I mean, like it or don't. It's just me, and I'm just me, and I'm going to be me. But the truth is, you can always become a better version of you. and asking the Holy Spirit, how can I help? How can I become a better version of me so that I honor your son better or honor your daughter better? How can I change to bring wholeness and healing to our relationship? I can't do Steve's part, and he can't do my part. In the same way that I can't do God's part in my life, and God is not going to do my part. There's always a God part, always a man part, and God is not ever going to do the man part. He's going to do the God part. And when we are looking at changes in relationships, let's start with pointing the finger at us and saying, Holy Spirit, help me know what to change.
And to build on what Melisa said, that's so important is, you're not going to be able to change them or fix them. And if you're busy monkeying under their hood, you're not fixing your own engine.
That's good. That's really good.
And here's the thing is, if she's leaking oil,
I hope it's the oil of the Holy Spirit.
I can give her some oil, but I'm not going to be able to fix the leak. What I need to do is I need to make sure that I'm in good shape in case, she blows a gasket and is stranded on the side of the curb. I'm there beside her in a healthy place to help move her along. And DLC superfan says pasta every night. Every day. Just saying.
Yep.
Nothing, I'm not sure that's the healthiest diet plan, but tasty. You can mix up the sauces, you can mix up the proteins so it doesn't seem repetitive. You can go with an Alfredo one night, you can go with chicken one night, go with beef another night, maybe sausage. There's just so many options and they're all good. Just saying.
Which has nothing to do with an oil leak.
Throwing that out to the universe and hoping it comes back to me on every wave. Pasta on every wave, baby.
That was a kind of scenic detour there, friend.
Well, I was just responding to our audience. That's all I was doing. I don't want them to feel like they're just barking into the air and they're not being heard here at the palatial Bridge Builder Studios, beautiful downtown Yukon, Oklahoma. So, the idea of fixing the other person, A, never works.
Never works.
B, it causes you to neglect the changes that you need, which are the only changes that you can actually affect. I can impact our marriage by taking vigilant care and intentional maintenance of myself.
Yeah.
We see it all the time in couples come in and they have a list of what's wrong with the person they married. And they don't have nothing about themselves on that list. And it's like, listen, sister, you need to change some things about you first, and then we'll see how that echoes throughout the marriage and the household. And there's the idea that every change that you institute in yourself is this painful giant thing where you're just birthing a whole new attitude is not necessarily accurate. I mean, some changes are big and profound and smart a little, but a lot of changes are small and incremental, and they add up in creating a more harmonious attitude in your house.
So we're going to take another break here right fast and let you check out some of our sponsors. But when we come back, we're going to talk about backseat drivers.
And we all have some.
Everybody's got some. We'll be right back.
Just a minute.
Hello, I'm Eric Anderson with F&M Bank. Have you noticed how every bank claims to give you service until you run into trouble? That so-called service disappears pretty quickly, but not at any of our 8 locations throughout central Oklahoma. We still have the same financial service delivered by empathetic, responsive, and competent professionals who are committed to our communities. Don't believe me? Come try us out for yourself. Experience relationship banking at F&M Bank, member FDIC.
80% of all bankruptcies are due to medical issues. If you're a business owner, what happens to your business if you can't work for an extended period of time? What about retirement? Do you have enough to live on for the rest of your life? Do you have a succession plan in place for your business? As a small business owner, it's vital that you make sure your business is protected for the future. If you don't have a plan, Five Rings Financial can help get you on the road to financial security and protection. Just give us a call today at 405-413-3638, or you can email me directly at Jamie, that's Jamie, at 5ringsokc.com to schedule a consultation about securing your financial future.
And we're back with Building Bridges with Steve and Melisa here on Crossover Radio, Radio with a Purpose. Just want to take a minute and remind you, if you haven't already, to go to download the Crossover Radio app and take Crossover Radio with you wherever you go. You can listen on any of your devices. Go to your App Store, your Google Play Store, wherever you get your apps, and download it. And that way you can join us. Maybe you can't always join us on Facebook Live, but you can always join us on the app.
And, we were talking just before the break about,
Pasta,
which is a good thing in all relationships.
Is it pasta or pasta?
It's pasta. Nobody.
I have some friends who call it pasta.
No, they're wrong. You just need to stop with the pasta. Unless you're from Chicago, where they have a funny accent, even funnier.
Maybe it's Italy that calls it pasta.
No, Italy does not call it pasta. I feeling strong on the no pasta stance. But
it's not pasta, it's pasta.
Maybe you're just dying to tinker with somebody else's engine. Just stop. Maybe what you need to do is just share this video. Maybe you just share the video and sort of passive-aggressively let them know they need to work on their own engine. And say, this is really good. I really got a lot out of this. You need to get a lot out of this. And you can just share it with the people that you think might benefit from putting their nose under their own hood for a little bit.
And you know what? Here's the thing. We either are a backseat driver or we have backseat drivers. And Steve's right. If you're trying to backseat drive in somebody else's life, in somebody else's relationship, just don't. Zip it. Nope. Butt out. It is not your business.
You're probably doing more harm than good. And if you keep hassling somebody about something that is not your business, the chances are they're going to dig in their heels and push back, and you're going to accomplish the exact opposite of the goal you're trying to achieve.
And let's be honest, I'm a mom. I have married children, and I have a different perspective of my children's relationships than they do, because I look in from the outside, and they look from the inside out. And of course, I've been married a lot longer than they have. I mean, almost a total of 40 years, but 38 years.
Nobody looks at you and thinks, wow, she's been married 38 years.
Thanks. But, so I have all of this marriage experience. Can I just say 20 years of it was a failure? And so at least I've learned what not to do. And I saw some things when I look back at the first 21, there's a lot of things I did wrong. And so I recognize those things that I've changed in my life and done differently in some of my children and their responses to relationships. And so I every once in a while feel really obligated to jump in the back seat and give some advice. And oddly enough, for the most part, the overwhelming majority of time, like 99.999% of the time, they're not interested in my advice. They're not interested in me telling them where they're wrong. They're not interested in me telling them how to do things. And I'm not probably the voice that they're going to listen to. And parents everywhere, moms everywhere, specifically moms everywhere, busybody moms who stick their nose in places where it doesn't belong. I can be in that club, so I'm pointing at myself too. Our people don't need backseat drivers. We do not need to get ourselves in the middle of our children's marriage's business, right? We can model right relationship for them. We can make sure that our relationship is with their parent, their step parent, their biological parent, their whatever parent you're married to.
You know what?
We can make sure that those relationships are healthy and we model good behavior. But moms, tickle, zip it, tickle lock.
You know what? We can be AAA. We can be there when their car breaks down for them.
Right.
But AAA isn't in your backseat telling you where to go and how to get there. AAA is just waiting around till they're really needed, and then they show up and change your tire or get your keys out of your car or do whatever AAA needs to do to help you get back on the road to where you're going.
And the secret to AAA is they don't stay in if your car breaks down and they come and pick you up and take you to the place where you find repairs. AAA is not doing the car repair on the side of the road.
Yeah.
AAA is not staying in the back seat with you for the rest of your car ride to wherever. AAA is a momentary assistance invited in by the person whose car broke down. Like, let's put AAA in their exact right spot if we're going to be AAA.
Exactly. And, it can be your sister, it can be your brother, it can be your best friend, it can be your child. And we want the best for them.
Right.
We want a safe trip to whatever their destination is. But we got to keep in our lane.
We got to get our nose out of other people's business, right? And, that's a really good point. Most backseat, have you ever taught a child to drive? It can be excruciatingly painful for literally everyone, right? And so nobody really enjoys backseat drivers. Although the truth is this: people who backseat drive have the best interest of the car at mind, right? I mean, they're giving you advice because they feel like it's in your best interest. And so most people who are backseat drivers aren't there to. They never kind of come from the place of, well, I'm getting the back seat and I'm going to make this person really mad and I'm going to tell them what to do and when to do it because my goal in the whole situation is to make everybody mad and aggravate people and cause us to have a wreck. Come on, man. Right? That is not the goal of any backseat driver. Every backseat driver has the best intentions, right? But they don't always, they rarely make the situation better. Here's an example. I might be in my own heart or in my own driving situation. Maybe I'm not paying as close to attention to the road as I should be. That never happens to me, by the way. But because I'm a very diligent, very good driver. Very, very good driver.
Very good driver.
But anyway, and I might be coming a little fast up on somebody who stopped in front of me. The natural inclination, if you're the passenger, is to say, stop, and yell really loud, right? Which startles the driver, which causes everything to go out of balance, right? Listen, there are times when you save somebody's life by yelling. It's true. If they're going to hurt somebody or hit somebody or whatever, there are times you need to yell fire if there's a fire, right? But let's be honest. That's like 0.000024% of the time, right? Better to say, hey, you might want to slow down. That doesn't startle the person and make everybody jar.
Better to not continue to accelerate to an object in front of you that's not moving.
Indeed.
Just saying.
It is. And
something is stopped, speeding towards it.
No, you're right. You're 100% correct. And it's not that you shouldn't say something, right? You should say something. But my point in that whole conversation is it's how you say it that makes the most difference, right? There are times when you should yell fire. If there's a fire, you should yell. It's true. If there's a super dangerous situation, you got to do whatever. Snake.
If you
whatever.
see a snake,
that you should do whatever you need to do to get their attention. But the overwhelming majority of the time, it's a simple, quiet correction that actually makes the difference. And really, you guys, backseat driving is limited to such a minuscule part of somebody else's relationship. So if you're the backseat driver's moms out there, if you're the backseat driver's dads out there, if you're the backseat driver's friends out there, just read a magazine. Play on your phone. Do whatever it takes to, get yourself out of the picture. When my daughter was learning to drive, I had a tendency to tell her how to drive, where to drive, when to drive, how to drive all the time, and it drove her insane because, well, that kind of behavior drives almost everyone insane. And I learned to play on my phone while she drove. And then I didn't have to see very much of what was going on. And I wasn't always telling her what to do and how to do it. And we both got along better. And sometimes when it comes to marriages and relationships, we just need to take ourselves out of the picture and not become the, authority on everything.
Right.
Dive right in, babe.
Here's the thing is those of us who are, our age and older and to a lesser degree, a little younger than us, have seen the Warner Brothers cartoons where the angel pops up on one shoulder and the devil pops up on the other shoulder. You know what? When the little angel pops up on Melisa's shoulder, she looks like Melisa. The angel popping up on Melisa's shoulder doesn't look like Steve.
That's a really good point, babe.
It's not my job to pop up on her shoulder and tell her how to do things. Oddly enough, the angel that pops up on her shoulder looks like her. And because she's so sweet, she gets an angel on this shoulder and an angel on that shoulder. She doesn't even have a devil pop up because she's so kind and wonderful.
There's, faith statement right there. But here's the thing. There are ways to offer suggestions or advice. It's rare that you need to. But modeling your behavior is a good way to do that. The other thing is, maybe in how you phrase it. Have you thought about? Have you considered? Mm-hmm. The other thing that you can do to help people without backseat driving is take it to the Lord.
Yep.
Take it to the Lord. Pray. Commit to pray for other people's relationships with the Lord. Here's
the true statement. God's record of changing people significantly more successful than your record of changing people.
Truth. That's
so
true.
If you want to inspire change in the person you're married to, you know what? Maybe you need to go to somebody who's actually good at changing people. Mm-hmm. We had a commercial earlier on the show for Rob's Ranch, which is a place where God goes down and changes people. Mm-hmm. So they have a much better God has a much better record changing and turning the person you married into the person that you're going to be happiest with. Way more successful than you do. So.
Right. And
so why don't you just listen to me and be more like I want you to be, and that way we can be happily married into our golden years. Does that sound like good advice?
For you.
For me.
I mean, it works well. I mean, you get whatever you want if I do that. That's true.
And what's funny is the reason I said that is to show how ridiculous it sounds to somebody who is on the receiving end of it. You know, and you may think that way and you may feel that way, and it may come out in all sorts of different expressions to the person you love. But if that's what you're communicating is, why don't you just be more like I want you to be, that's going to create friction, that's going to create problems, that's going to create conflicts, and you need to just stop. You know, you need to say, you know, I'm not the captain of your ship, but I can do things that are going to promote growth, that are going to promote health in our relationship. I can measure my comments. I cannot react to everything out of emotion all the time. I am going to choose forgiveness.
Offer grace.
I am going to allow my partner, my spouse, to screw up and not hammer them over the head with the same mistake for the next 7 months. You know, those are all things that you have total control over, and you can do. You can change about yourself.
You know what we have control over?
Coffee?
We have control over coffee, but we have control over the last commercial break of our show. So we're going to take a little break here. We're going to come back, tie all this up, put a little bow on the end of it. We'll be back in a flash here on Building Bridges with Steve and Melisa on Crossover Radio.
Radio with a purpose.
Don't go
Looking
away.
for the latest Piedmont gear to wear? Check out TWD Shirt Company, formerly known as the Wild Daisy, on Monroe and downtown Piedmont. Tees, hoodies, hats, and more in men's, women's, and youth sizes. You can find what you need to cheer on our Wildcats in style. TWD also is your source for team uniforms and custom embroidery and printing for your business or special event. Locally owned and operated since 2012 and proud sponsor of Piedmont Athletics. Go Cats!
Whether you need a professional writer to build or expand your online presence, or fresh new designs and new perspective to build your business, where do you start? Tales from the Click Media is committed to telling your story in a way that promotes business growth, consistent branding, and long-term success. So whether you have 1 or 100 employees, no tale is too small to tell. Call us today at 405-620-6200 or visit our website at talesfromtheclickmedia.com.
Welcome back. It's the last part of our show today. Thank everybody who has joined us. Would you guys be willing to share our Facebook Live with your friends? Invite them to come join us. The more the merrier, right? We love having people join us on our Facebook Live, jumping into the conversation. And we want more people to know about what's going on here at Crossover Radio and on Building Bridges.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, you know, maybe there's something, maybe they just need a break from the craziness of 2020. Maybe they just, you know, maybe something that we say is going to put a smile on their face, give them a chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
That alone makes sharing it worthwhile.
Right.
And, you know, maybe your friend is in an absolute train wreck, and maybe they need to get some counseling or some coaching in their life, and they don't know where to go, and, you know, a hour-long radio show with some chuckles and some, you know,
not chuckleheads,
self-effacing humor opens the door and says, hey, they seem like a safe place. You know, maybe there's a door to help somebody change their life that's available. And
so that brings us to the last part of our topic for today. We've been talking about road rules for change, and we've been talking about
being asleep
at the wheel and those kinds of things. And so we really I want to talk about the concept of, you know, sometimes when you are in a place where you you need to change how you're doing things or whatever, and you find yourself where you're just coasting, you're just on autopilot, you're just on cruise control in your marriage. Sometimes when you're asleep at the wheel, you got to get out and walk around a little bit. You got to, you
pull into a rest area and stretch the legs out.
You got to stretch your legs, but you usually, if you pull into a rest area because you're asleep at the wheel, you get something to drink that energizes you. You get, you get some outside contact with other people,
fresh air,
and I think that that's an important piece to marriage. Is one of the things we tell all the couples, especially our pre-marriage couples that we work with, we tell them you always need counseling way before you think you need counseling.
Right, and here's the thing about that is the idea of stopping and stretching and getting some fresh air, if you've been doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over, okay, here's the deal. If you've been married 5 years, doesn't seem like a really long time. That is 1,800 days. You want to do the same thing 1,800 times in a row? Probably not. Probably not going to be exciting. Probably not going to be energizing. Probably not going to be life-giving. That's why you got to stop, mix things up, and that keeps you from getting into that, zombie cruise control style marriage that doesn't benefit anybody.
Right. And you know what? Here's the thing. I grew up in a place, in a family where we always put our best foot forward. Everybody in our everybody that knew us thought our life was perfect, and the truth was it wasn't perfect. And nobody, but in the same way, nobody that I knew got counseling. Counseling was never on the table. It was never, and and I think probably the concept was if people got counseling, they were really bad. They were really, really bad. And the truth is, most marriages benefit from a quarterly tune-up. I mean, you change the oil in your car regularly, and it makes your car run better.
Right.
And so counseling is a great place for a rest stop in your relationship. It's a safe place to just take a healthy review and say, hey, what do I need to do? Is everything, maybe your marriage is good, and you just need to make sure that you're on track to continue down that path. Maybe your marriage is mostly good, and you just need to tighten up a few areas in your relationship to make it great. And so one of the things that I would really like to encourage people to do is to consider a quarterly tune-up in their relationship. Going to counseling is a really good thing. And, I changed the oil in my car because a long time before the engine blows, right? I mean, like changing the oil regularly means I never have to pay for a new engine because I've maintained the engine well. And what happens is when you don't do that, you end up with an engine. If you don't ever put any oil in your engine, you don't ever change the oil in your engine's going to blow, and the repair is going to be so much more expensive and traumatic and all of those things if you just did maintenance along the way. So I would like to encourage people to take a pit stop in their marriage periodically and do some maintenance work.
Okay, if you're local here in Oklahoma City, there's only about 1 billion churches.
Mm-hmm.
One of them may be having some sort of marriage event.
True.
That's a great way to go inject some new information into your marriage, break up the monotony. You take a Friday night, Saturday morning, you invest in your marriage, and all of a sudden, you get another 100,000 miles out of your engine. If you're out there and you're a church and you're a pastor, take some time, invest in your marriages. Strong marriages make strong churches.
Right.
And you want a strong church. And here's the thing is, when you have healthy married couples, they provide leadership for your church.
Right.
So that's a good thing to do. And you know what? There's podcasts, there's books, there's all sorts of ways to inject good, healthy relationship ideas into your marriage.
And here's the thing. Good counseling is not only for people who are in a horrible, terrible, awful place. Counseling is good for every marriage. Every marriage should be in counseling. Every pastor's marriage should be in. If you're a pastor, you should be in counseling periodically just to make sure that everything is okay. Because you know what? Good counselors are going to ask questions you might not have thought to ask.
Good counselors are going to provide a safe place to bring things up that maybe you were concerned about bringing up at home.
So doing the maintenance in your relationship. Hey, listen, Bridge Builder Marriage Ministry, that's what we do. Counseling is one of the things that we do. And so it's a great place to connect. It's a great place to come. And so we want to encourage you out there. Every marriage needs a tune-up periodically. Not just once, but 2 or 3 times a year is great for just a periodic maintenance. Maybe just do 2 or 3 marriage counseling sessions a quarter. And you're like, hey, we just want to check in. We just want to make sure everything's okay. Maybe we want to talk about one thing or something else, or maybe the counselor's just going to ask some questions to kind of get a baseline for where you're at. And that's a really good thing. Taking a weekend with your spouse and just going away, just the two of you, and saying, you know what, we're going to just take a check-in weekend, right? We're just going to go and we're going to check in with each other. How's our marriage going? What do you think we're doing well? What do you think where do you think we need to improve? And do a check-in weekend.
And maybe you've been so busy that you haven't really had time to give to your spouse. You've been working on a big project at work. The kids are in, soccer playoffs,
You got that whole Corona thing, trying to learn how to do everything differently.
And so, maybe you need to take some time just to give to one another. Just to really focus on the person you married for a Saturday, Sunday. That's going to go a good ways towards keeping you on the road, keeping you moving towards your marriage goals.
Right. And so just remember, doing proper maintenance, getting out, taking a realistic view, stretching your legs, getting some, injection of some good stuff into your marriage is really healthy to help you not be asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
And so we hope that this month, as we've talked about road rules for change in your relationship, that there's been a nugget or two. Maybe this is the first time you've stumbled onto our show and you want to go back. You can watch all of our radios, all of our Building Bridges shows. You can watch them on our YouTube channel, on the Bridge Builder Marriage Ministry YouTube channel. You can watch them again, the Facebook Lives on the Crossover Radio app or the Bridge Builder Marriage Ministry app, Facebook page. And we want you to take advantage of this. We also want to hear from you. If you have questions, thoughts, comments about our shows, be sure and send them to us. You can reach us at bridgebuildermm.org. And, if you have show ideas, maybe you have something here's a topic I'd really like for you to talk about.
Yeah.
Hey, we're open for that.
We're game.
Yeah, and so we've been doing this show for almost 3 years now?
No.
2 years. For sure 2 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's
and that's a lot of weekly radio shows, right?
Yep.
So we're here because we want to help people. We want to help marriages. Yep. And so if you have ideas, let us know.
Yeah, if you have questions, what's the best way for them to get a question to us?
You can message us on Facebook. You could DM us on Instagram. You could go to our website at bridgebuildermm.org and send us a message. You send us an email. You can leave it on our Facebook page here on our shows. There's lots of ways to connect with us.
And we will do our very best to get back to you as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So we want to say thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope that you've shared our videos with your friends, that you've invited other couples to come and join us. And we hope, as we end up the month of September talking about road rules for change in your marriage, that there's been a topic or two that's resonated with you and helped you have a better marriage. But we'll be back next Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time here on Crossover Radio.
Radio with a Purpose. We'll see you next week.